Hello, Asia. Hello, world, wherever you are, joining us from different time zones in the region and around the world, from the comforts of your living rooms, bedrooms, offices, and maybe even some of you driving to work. Welcome to session 1 of C Solutions. And it is really, really wonderful to see hundreds of delegates online joining us from all over the region. I would like to introduce myself. I'm Rico Hizon, your host and moderator for this Sea of Solutions event, and for joining me in this session where we will discuss effective strategies that help shape and address consumer demand for a more eco-friendly lifestyle beyond the COVID-19 pandemic. Broadly speaking, consumers these days are aware of the magnitude of the plastic pollution crisis. But in a survey led by the UN Environment Program and Food Industry Asia in 2020, the study revealed a significant disconnect between expectations and action on reducing plastic waste. So let us find out from our panelists, from our esteemed panelists, what are the hurdles, the hindrances, as well as drivers in catalyzing that behavioral change among consumers towards greener lifestyle. Well, this session will also discuss the latest trends and challenges in promoting an eco-friendly and zero plastic lifestyle among consumers, share effective approaches in transforming consumption patterns, consequently reducing plastic use in different consumer industries, from textiles, from e-commerce, retail, banking, travel, and tourism, and also identify the benefits of shifting away from a throwaway culture for business, communities, and consumers through proven tools and strategies. Well, this will showcase as well good practice business models across various sectors and impactful ways of engaging consumers across different groups of societies with the focus on business responsibility and fostering green markets. Well, to start this conversation, we have 6 very experienced panelists who have done impressive work through the years in advocating for a reduction in plastic consumption among today's consumers. Let me introduce them to all of you. We have as one of our guests and panelists, the commercial head of Hatta Dolmat and the Vice President of KL Young Designers Malaysia. Let us all please welcome Idan Maat. Hello, Idan. Great to have you with us on this session.
Thank you so much, Rico. You're very nice. Hello from Malaysia.
Welcome, Idan. And
Yeah.
our next guest and panelist is the General Manager of Ibis Styles Bangkok, Kausan Viengtai, Acor Asia. Let us all please welcome John Cannon. Hi, John. Great to have you with us on this session.
Great to be here. Thanks, Rico.
And he is joining us from Bangkok. And the Executive Director of the Philippine Reef and Rainforest Conservation Foundation, joining us all the way from Negros in the Philippines, Dave Albao. Hi, Dave. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, everyone. Mabuhay. Magandang hapon. Rico.
And joining us from Jakarta is the Executive Director of the Plastic Bag Diet Movement Indonesia. Let us all please welcome Tiza Mafira. Hi, Tiza.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Rico. Good to be here.
All right. It's nice to have all of you in this session. And the founder of the Mesh Minds or Foundation in Singapore. Let us all please welcome Kay Vasi. Hi, Kay.
Hi there, Rico. Hi from Singapore. Good to be here. Thank you.
And our next panelist, last but not the least, Climate and Environment Consultant for UNICEF Malaysia. Let us all please welcome Jasmine Irisha. Hi, Jasmine.
Hello. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, each of our panelists, ladies and gentlemen, bring in wealth of experience in promoting sustainable consumption patterns through their own work in their respective industries and sectors. Well, in order to deep dive into these unique experiences, we first begin with industry strategies, specifically fashion, textile, and travel and tourism. Next, we will be exploring city and community level actions. And finally, we will wrap up with the role of the youth and digital technology in driving transformation in consumer behavior. So this will be a very interesting session for all delegates who are watching us right now over the next 90 minutes. So stay tuned, stay with us for the next hour and a half. And before we start our discussion, we would like to encourage our delegates joining us today to write in your questions on the chat box, and we will ask your questions after our respective fireside chats with our panelists. Thank you so much. So let's start off this session with Idan. Idan, can you share with us the challenges and initiatives to address plastic waste in the fashion and textile industry in Malaysia?
All right. First of all, thank you so much, Rico, for your introduction. My name is Idan. I am from Malaysia. I'm representing Hatta Dolmat. Hatta Dolmat is a fashion designer in Malaysia, and he has been in the fashion industry for more than 16, 17 years. So we have been going through a lot of fashion waves, I think, since the past 16 to 17 years, and until now, we are still in the industry and we are surviving throughout the changes of the fashion industry from years ago and until now. So talking about fashion sustainability and also talking about the solution to the plastic waste, very interesting. It came across to our mind, I think, approximately a few years ago. It was in 2015, where Hatta Dolmat himself, he created the garments and also the fabric by his own paintings. He is actually a painter, an artist. So he created the garments, he created the fabric, he created the design by his own painting. So when it comes to his own paintings, he felt like he doesn't want to, throw it out to the landfills, because he have that sentimental view to the paintings of the fabrics. He doesn't want to throw it out. He just wants to keep everything for himself. So
That's right.
that came across to the point where we felt like when everything that we do, when it comes to the sentimental value, we must conserve the fabric. We must conserve the materials. We must conserve the design. From that moment, we understood that this is actually leading us to the sustainability path. And then back in 2015. And then back in 2020, we started to, because we understood our nature of company, our nature of brand and design, we work together with the government. We try to understand what is the problem of our environment, because Hatta Dolmat himself, he is a very environmental person. He loves nature. He loves to be in the woods. He loves to be in the river. He loves to go to the ocean. So he is a very environmentalist person. So from that, we are working together with the government, and we understood that there are problems in our country that is currently piling up, and that is plastic waste. And I personally think that we as the fashion people working in the fashion industry, what else that can we do to try to reduce the plastic problems, to try to reduce the plastic waste? And from that moment, we are working together with people who are in the industry, who have the same passion as we are, to actually address to the problem and also find the solution to it. And that's when the idea of converting the plastic or polyester terephthalate to the fabric came across to our mind. So that's happened in 2020. And we started to go for our sustainability movements from last year and up until this year in 2021, where we just recently launched our new collection. It was purely sustainable, and it was purely addressed to the ocean sustainability in KL Fashion Week 2021. So the point is, our goal is to actually, the keyword is actually to prolong the active lifetime of a garment. Because, say I buy a t-shirt. Okay, I have a t-shirt. I own a t-shirt. I buy a t-shirt. And a t-shirt is, average lifetime of a t-shirt is actually 30 times. Okay, its average use of the t-shirt is actually 30 times. Say, if instead use the t-shirt for perhaps around 60 times, I am probably decreasing the climate change for about 49%. You know, so our key point is that we create a beautiful garment, we create the sentimental value of the fabric, and also from that, we have the certain rate of price that we address to each garment. And when people buy the products, they buy with the sentimental value that they own. Because according to our, you know, Hatta Doma himself, he has his own followers. So we try to educate the consumers, we try to educate the people to actually prolong the life of the garment itself. You know, the garment that we are using is actually made out of plastic bottles. You know, it is recycled. The fabric is actually recycled from plastic materials. And also from that, when you buy the collection, when you buy the garments, we try to educate them to prolong the lifetime of the garments. So at the same time, we are actually teaching them to use the slow fashion kind of trend. So that is a slow fashion kind of trend, basically. So by creating a sustainable clothing that have the designer's DNA, that would be contributing to the usage of to the, you know, the culture of sustainable fashion in Malaysia. Because to be honest with you, Rico, sustainability in fashion, basically in our country, is not really a talk of the town. You know, a lot of people are trying to digest with the idea of sustainability, and also the idea of trying to, you know, use the fabric that was made out of plastic bottles. So that is basically the main idea.
So Idan, how are you promoting the sustainability of garments? And are you just a lone voice in the forest, or are there also other fashion houses and other groups that are one with you in promoting sustainable the sustainability of garments?
I would say I will divide the answer into two different categories. The first one, when it comes to the fashion industry itself, the people who are in the industry, especially the consumers, and also some of the people who have been, you know, in the fashion industry, we are actually addressing to the issues of sustainability for a long time. And we know that we would like to go for fashion sustainability, but the problem is, we can say that we have been in the 50-50 kind of situation. There are designers or some of the people who have been in the industry who doesn't really wanted to go into that sustainability journey because of the idea of fast fashion, because everybody wanted to go fast. And for us, we wanted to go for sustainability because we wanted to address the idea of saving the environment. So that is a very challenging situation for us to balance between both situations, where we have to address and educate people at the same time, and we have to educate the designers in the industry to follow our footsteps. So beginning our journey last year and from 2015, it has been a challenging and rough patch for us. But I could say 2021, after the pandemic and COVID-19 situation happened, it has been quite a movement, and people have started to really understand on the concept of sustainable garments and, you know, fabric made out of recycled plastic bottles. People have started to open their eyes and see that the fabric made out of recycled plastic bottles can actually be worn by people in daily life. So that is the situation happened now.
Thank you so much, Idan, for sharing with us the journey of your fashion sustainability initiatives. We will get back to you during our fireside chat in a moment. But John, share with us right now your experience in the hotel and tourism sector. How is Acor's Planet 21 campaign contributing to a less plastic waste world?
Come in. There we are. So with Acor hotels, we've got 5,200 hotels globally. So we know that our impact on the planet it's huge if we don't act and we don't do something. So Planet 21 started in 2011, and it's the Acor Hotels' commitment to sustainable hospitality. So we engage our employees, our guests, the communities that we work in. We want to have positive hospitality. So we don't want to be leaving huge garbage piles in the areas that we work. So plastic reduction is huge for us at the moment, and it has been a challenge. We know that every hotel that you go to, you get your little shampoos and your conditioners and your body soaps, and So we've got a big push this year now to eliminate all of those single-use toiletries. So you can't fill your suitcase when you travel anymore, Rico, with all the little shampoos. So that's where we're going to, because if we look at just the average hotel, they're usually contributing about 150,000 pieces per hotel to landfill. And that's not just Accor, it's Hilton, it's IHG, it's Marriott, it's independent hotels. So we know that the plastic waste it's a huge problem, and it will continue. And I think as we've gone through the pandemic at the moment, we're starting to see a plastic pandemic come back as people are buying their street food in Thailand, everything's still in plastic bags. Takeaways shot up as restaurants closed, and it's all delivered in plastic because it's a cheaper option.
Correct.
But in Asia, we're still seeing these big problems. So yes, we as Acor have to do something, but also it's got to be government mandated. I know when I moved from Australia, which is very heavy on recycling, coming to Asia, and my first job was in Phuket, and during wet season, the volume of plastic that washed up on the beach, and every day we did beach cleans, and we're filling 30, 40 garbage bags every day of plastic waste that's just washed in the ocean every day, and that's in our section of the beach, and every hotel on the beach was doing the same. But if there's not that recycling program in place, the plastic goes back into landfill and the cycle keeps going. So we need to eliminate all of this plastic in hotels, in our lives, and in the industry.
And John, share with us, what has Accor achieved so far in specific countries in Southeast Asia, like Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam?
Yeah, so we've moved, obviously there's the big kind of push on straws. That was the big topic kind of 3-4 years ago. So eliminating all of those, going through all of our bedrooms, you still need, the guest still needs a toothbrush. But where are we getting the material from? There's technology's moved on so far, and the costs are coming down. The toothbrushes these days that we're purchasing are made from cornstarch, and they're biodegradable. The packaging that we're using, if we are doing food delivery, is biodegradable. And we've just got to make sure that the items that we're using have got that accreditation with it. So there's a big push from our central units in Singapore, who controls Southeast Asia, that procurement of the right materials for their hotels.
There's a lot to learn from best practices of Accor's Planet 21 campaign. Thank you, John, for sharing with us the initiatives which will go a long way to a less plastic waste world. Let's dig deeper now in this chat that we're having with Idan and John. Idan, you mentioned it earlier that it has been a challenging year because of COVID-19. What has the past year taught you? And how the fashion industry, particularly fashion sustainability, and how it has pivoted during this new normal?
Very interesting, because fashion industry has always been fast. We have been moving really fast, and I think pandemic COVID-19 has stopped whatever things that we're doing. But thankfully, because for me and my team and Hatta Dolmat, we have been trying to go for slow fashion for the past few years, even before pandemic COVID-19. And since then, we have been studying a lot on fashion sustainability. And to be honest with you, fashion sustainability doesn't really get affected badly during the pandemic COVID-19 because of the idea of slow fashion and the idea of generating something that is very meaningful to the consumers, that is very meaningful, and that is very that has the sentimental value, would help us so much in surviving the pandemic COVID-19. But to be honest with you, when it comes to the fashion industry as a whole, it does change a lot in terms of pattern, in terms of creating garments, and in terms of the designers, especially in our country, to try to survive during the COVID-19 and also post COVID-19.
And what about for you, John? What has the hotel and tourism sector learned from this health crisis, and now that we are in the new normal?
It's had a twofold effect. Obviously, there's been an impact on the business, but now the consumer's been very aware of the changes that's happening. Consumer sentiment's changing a lot. So we're now, even with our online travel agents like the booking.coms of the world, there you can actually click now and book a sustainable green hotel. So we're having to really, we've always been moving quite fast, but the consumer's feeding back to us a lot more on this. So we're working across, and it's not just plastic for Acor, it's carbon neutrality. There's so many elements that we're working across, but the consumers are demanding it now. I know within the fashion industry, you do see those big brands, as Zidan mentioned, that producers mass market. We are a big player in the market, so our consumers are really challenging us and are calling us out. So it's really positive to see that the guests are holding us accountable now, which is good. And the consumers are very aware of their impacts that they have. So they're coming in. We've got water stations in the hotel so people can fill up their their metal water bottle and things like that. So it's the consumers are now asking for those kind of things. So hotels are having to move quickly. And when you can feed back to owners of hotels that the consumers are looking at this, it's an easier argument to have with owners for investing in new technologies, paying that little bit more for something which doesn't impact the environment.
Very interesting. The consumer trends and what they're looking for right now when they book a hotel. So, Idan, what inspires you basically and your team to start an awareness movement in fighting against plastic pollution, especially within the fashion industry?
Very funny story. I was a part of the government agency years ago before I'm joining completely in the fashion industry. So from that agency, we have started. That agency is actually really focusing on sustainability. So very funny story. From that moment, I figured that the sustainability in the industry has started to grow, but the funny thing is that in our country, we are focusing more on the low carbon mobility and also the low carbon city. But when it comes to the fashion and garments and textiles and things that related to clothing, we doesn't really have so much of inputs in terms of sustainability. So from the previous research and works that we have done during my years in the previous government agency, I have started to study on the the recycled polyester that can be turned into fabrics, and the fabrics can be turned into garments. That was the ticking point in my head that I was thinking that maybe our fashion industry could actually do something out of this. Because if we are not starting off anything out of nothing, then we couldn't actually move to the sustainability path or sustainability movement. So that was the point where I went to see Hatta Domat, and we started to have a little bit of discussion regarding sustainability and how for us and our fashion industry to move towards the sustainability movement. So that was actually the first aha moment for me and my team and for the rest of the people who are currently now in our fashion industry team members. And happy to say that from that aha moment years ago, it has turned out to be a global sustainable movement from us and from Hatta. And most of our fashion designers and fashion people have started to see that the importance of saving the environment and also the solution of the plastic waste in our country now is in front of their eyes. And to be honest, that Malaysians is producing a lot of plastic waste in daily life, in our daily life. And also, I would say we have been producing 38,000 tons of plastic waste daily. And from that moment, it was the kind of like very worrying moment for us, because as we are in the fashion industry, we understand then that we have to do something out of this situation. So from that moment, tickling point to our sustainability movements, and it has got us up to this stage.
John, you and Nidan have really great private sector initiatives. But going forward, do you think this can be sustained? Is the political will there among the Asian and Southeast Asian governments to keep up this sustainability drive? And in your view, what else needs to be done to expand its reach and its impact?
I think the governments are having pressure put on them to do this. I think it's as within the ASEAN community, they know the impact that plastic and the environment has. And it's with most of our countries, tourism's a big factor and a big part of the GDP for each country. So if you're ruining your beaches and the social media is showing that, yep, it looks great on the postcard, but if you actually come here, you've got to step around plastic bottles and spoons and straws. The consumer knows, and the consumer is very aware. So that puts pressure on governments to maintain this and continue it. There's still a lot of work to be done with the governments. The infrastructure to recycle needs to be put in there, and that's the ability to sort waste. Within our hotels, we separate the waste. And unfortunately, in some areas of Thailand, I've seen it, you separate all the waste and then it goes into one truck and then that goes to landfill. So we can only do so much. We don't have the infrastructure in place to recycle the items. So it's down to the governments and the local authorities to really keep driving this forward. It will, as it's always front of mind, and as media and social media pushes this, governments have to maintain this.
And on your end, Idan, do you think that this fashion sustainability can momentum be sustained going forward?
I think absolutely yes. We can sustain the movements and also the sustainability movements. I think because sustainability is not a trend; it's actually something that you have to do, and also something that is. It is your responsibility towards the environment and also towards the nature. So regardless of which industry you are, you have your own responsibility and everybody has to play their roles. I am agree with John to say that tourism is badly affected, and also talking about the plastic bottles in the beaches. Currently, we just recently launched our new collection. It's called Oceaners. And then we, particularly our team, we went to the beaches and also the seashores in our country, especially in the local seashores, to collect the plastic bottles. And also we turned that plastic bottles that we collected in the oceans and also we collected at the beaches, turn them into fabrics. And from that moment, we understand that beaches, ocean have been really badly affected, because as for me and my team, we have been focusing on the landfills for the past few years. And also we have been neglecting on the oceans. But when we went to the ocean and we see what was really happened there, it is really worrying. And also from that moment, we understand that there's a lot to be done. We need to do a lot of things from now. And this is just a starting point. And to educate people, we are not just educating the fashion designers, but we are educating the young people who are in the local fashion institute. Because if we are educating just the fashion designers who are currently in the fashion industry, they might or might not want to join to the fashion sustainability movement because they have been in the comfort zone for so many years. But if we are educating the people who are currently in searching their own path, I think they are trying to learn more. And I think the younger generations have a lot of information on sustainability because of the social media, because they have been reading a lot. It's just that they doesn't have the ground subjects or the ground syllabus that has been talking about fashion sustainability. So that's what we're trying to do. Educate the current fashion designers and also educating the younger generations. So if they graduated from the institutions, they are now a fashion designer, they understand about fashion sustainability.
Thank you very much, Idan and John, for sharing your experiences and the industry actions. Let us now broaden our understanding of what is actually happening at the city and community levels. And we're joined now by Dave Albao from the Philippines and Tiza Mafira from Indonesia. And they will tell us more about their engagements with communities and local governments. Let's start off with you, Dave. The Executive Director of the Philippine Reef and Rainforest Conservation Foundation. Briefly, walk us through the story behind Wala Usik Economy Project.
Thank you, Rico. So, the reason behind Wala Usik is also a cultural story and not just an environmental story. Wala Usik means nothing is wasted in our local dialect in Ilonggo. which is a Filipino language. Walausik is our expression of conservation and circular economy, because it doesn't sound alien to the communities. So it's very, I think this is the first point that I would like to make, Rico. If we communicate the movement for example, reduction of plastic, and we use the words zero waste or no plastic, in our experience here in Negros, it sounds foreign and intimidating to them. So we need to connect with them. We need to connect with the consumers. No? So one image that you're looking at here is a coastal cleanup image, and we do this a lot in the Philippines. So in our experience, we have gathered data, not just the types of waste, but also what are the issues that the communities talk about. So in this photo, for example, stop for a bit here, it's called the fish bolan. And we understood through our studies that people cared about the food that they eat, their health and their livelihood. So again, food security, public health, and livelihood. And through this program, we were able to design, sari-sari stores, Rico, that are trying to reduce single-use plastic packaging from the bottom up, and not waiting for the producers to redesign the chain, but also to show that there are practices like using the glass bottles for refilling of oil, something that our elders have practiced before the advent of sachets. And we are trying to raise the conversation about these practices. That is why I call it cultural, because it's not just about the refilling, it's also the native materials that we use to wrap our food materials. Like, when you buy fruits like this, these are all replaced by single-use plastic because, of course, of convenience.
And Dave, being born and raised in the Philippines, I can, truly attest to how these community stores, or what you call sari-sari stores and eateries, are very much a part of our culture. But how successful have you been in the community level with your Walausik project?
I wouldn't say that we are solving the problem right now. It's these sari-sari stores, Rico, are prototypes. In the design thinking process, you're testing them as well. But we believe that if there is a transition, even at least 10% of sari-sari stores in the country transition to circular practices, we definitely can make significant impact, in reducing the amount of sachets. What we know, though, is that brands that actually produce the fast-moving consumer goods that we see in sari-sari stores are taking notice. And we've worked with a couple of transnational corporations to also roll out their own designs of, basically they have commitments to keep in 2030 to redesign their packaging and their distribution systems. And we have provided an opportunity in the local communities in the Philippines to test them out and to see what are the pain points, what are the consumers saying, are they accepting the changes? And I have a lot to share about that, Rico, but definitely this is the purpose of Walausik economy, is to mainstream and test out circular practices on the ground and actually use this information to design further, especially from the top down, as we say.
And another inspiring mover is Tiza Mafira, co-founder and the executive director of the Indonesia Plastic Bag Diet Movement. Tiza, share with us how your group has successfully engaged with cities and municipalities to fight plastic pollution.
Thanks, Rico. Well, from the outset, our group had the motivation to push for policies and legislation. I'm a lawyer by training. I quit a job at a corporate law firm to focus on environmental issues. And early on, what we saw was that there was a lack of policy when it came to preventing the use of single-use plastic. And this was maybe 8-9 years back, before in Indonesia plastic became quite a wide-known issue. Back then, it wasn't well known yet. There was a study by Jenna Jambek, which was a milestone study that called out Indonesia as the second largest ocean polluter of the world. That study hadn't come out yet. So we're talking about, pre-awareness era. And there was no legislation. People were still using single-use plastic bags left and right. It was still provided for free. And we had been trying as a community-based organization we had been trying to raise awareness. We had been trying to talk to supermarkets. Hey, do you want to put a charge on your plastic bag and things like that? But it wasn't moving fast enough. And so we decided to target legislation. And that's when, well, I mean, long story short, which was not a short story, it took 8-9 years for us to finally push for legislation, but we did manage to do it through a combination of applying external pressure to the government through community movements, as well as helping the government from internally by helping them formulate these legislations. And I helped draft some key legislations, including the plastic bag bans that have now been enacted in Jakarta and Bali. And once we, kind of won those two big provinces, those two big key cities, we immediately saw a lot of other cities follow suit. And today we have 60 cities across Indonesia that have banned plastic bags. So this is an exciting moment for us, but I can tell you a lot more about all the homework that still needs to be done up ahead.
Absolutely. The legislation may be there, Tiza, but is the political will there to implement it?
Yeah, the political will is there. And I think that the success of a legislation lies in a few factors. It's not just the implementation aspect of it. It's whether or not the legislation was based on support, a measurable support from the public itself when the legislation was enacted. And that's why we spent a lot of time kind of priming, the public, giving out a lot of social information prior to the legislation to make sure that when the legislation comes out, there's a lot of support. So that's one factor. The second factor is the retailers themselves. So the legislations mostly apply to retailers, and we had to make sure the retailers knew exactly what to do when the legislation comes out. Now we see some retailers, they know exactly what to do. In some cities, it's not exactly great when this preparation phase doesn't happen, because what they do is they simply switch to a different single-use item, and that creates another problem. What we want retailers to do is to switch from single-use plastics to helping promote reuse solutions, helping remind consumers that reuse is the answer. The third then is implementation and monitoring and penalties and things like that.
Tiza, has legislation affected consumer behavior? What has worked and what hasn't?
It has. So we have seen in the cities that we've helped and monitored, we've seen a decline of plastic bag use by 80%. And this is, in areas where it is legislated, right? Where, supermarkets and mini markets, they're mandated to do this, and there we see a steep decline. But for consumer behavior, we also have seen that when we do a survey to consumers, they say, well, we support this legislation. We understand the reason behind this legislation. We have reusable tote bags. We don't forget to bring the reusable tote bags. So there's also an increase in the use of reusable items by consumers. And that's really the behavioral change that we're looking for. Now, what hasn't necessarily worked, right, is where it's not apparent that the solution is reuse. So, for example, straws, where some restaurants are starting to say, okay, we're not giving straws anymore, but they're now giving out straws that are claiming to be bioplastics, but are actually still containing plastics, So problematic things, not certified or in any way, but just claiming to be compostable, but not actually compostable. Because of the pressure for I guess, businesses to provide a quick fix solution. Whereas what we want is actually for them to first think of what about if we don't give anything at all? That's not going to kill you. We don't give you any straws. That's not going to kill you. But or if we give you like a bamboo straw or or a reusable straw. So these kinds of steps, if you eliminate that from the process of legislation or policy making, the risk is that you immediately jump to the next practical single-use disposable solution, which may not solve the environmental issue that we have.
Dave, on your end, what is the local government's role, let's say, for example, in Negros, in nudging communities towards sustainable consumption patterns?
They're generally supportive, Rico, but as you know, in a country like the Philippines, sometimes the support does not necessarily mean it's it's being enabled in the community. When I say that, and I'd like to add a little bit of nuance to what Tiza was actually saying, because this is something that we also witness in the local government. I remember going into a councilor's room, and then he said, "You know what? I should not support your single-use plastic because all the market vendors will be mad at me, and if they're mad at me, they won't vote for me, and when they don't vote for me, I will not be able to support your programs." So I mean, obviously this is a very simplistic representation of our relationship with local government, but what I'm saying is there would be resistance, and I've seen that happen in the community, and the local government would usually take the side of the number of voters, right? The people who actually put them into power. So this is a very delicate mix in local governance, because you have groups who are talking about environmental sustainability, but there are also sectors that we cannot ignore, like market vendors and really below the poverty line consumers that will be affected if we have bills. For example, in the current in the current Congress, there's a bill to eliminate some single-use plastic materials like the plastic straws, and we do support that. However, I'm adding a nuance here that there has to be some equitable transition, right? And it will not be easy for many sectors, and this is actually one of the pain points of pushing for circular initiatives, Rico.
And tell us, Dave, what are the sustainable alternatives that have resonated well with consumers there, and that has basically managed to bridge the gap between awareness and action?
Initially, we thought refilling models, at the grassroots, like micro refilleries, meaning they can buy, for example, shampoo or any personal or home care product that is in the same volume as that in the sachets, but maybe even more, maybe even locally produced, with the same price points, but without the single-use plastic packaging. Will the consumers change their behavior? Initially, we said this model is what we want to promote. However, we've seen an adoption curve, right? In the adoption curve, we really do see late majority adopters and laggards, meaning those people who refuse to bring their reusable containers because for them, that's a loss of money, loss of time, it's very inconvenient. And at first, we thought we could change the mindset. But because of the empathy part of the work that we're doing, we now know that it's hard for them to transition to refilling. So the best model, I think, Rico, is going back to native packaging. In the Visayas, we have puso, like rice wrapped in pandan leaves. There is technology that could ensure the sanitation and the engineering of these native packaging materials that are not mixed or lined with any other material. We've seen these models work in the past. We've seen these models work when, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, before the advent of mass-produced single-use plastic products, Rico, and I believe if we are able to innovate in that space, for example, banana leaves that are prefabricated but produced by a local community, but with the technology that can make them easy to distribute and to sell in the locality, that would be an interesting thing to see.
And Tiza, would you like to add to what Dave just said about bridging the gap between awareness and action?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Dave about bringing back local wisdom. We've seen it happen, especially in more suburban areas where there's still closeness, a familiarity with local packaging, banana leaves, and baskets made of palm leaves. Now, in the cities, it's a little bit more difficult to do that because the cities have such a huge modern infrastructure built around the way that people are shopping in supermarkets and online shopping. So another thing that I would add to a solution, especially for metropolitan settings, is making sure that the choices are dominant and visible. Now, we don't have this dominance and visibility of sustainable alternatives yet. We do have them in some niche markets. We have like a bulk store here and there. We have, a sustainable fashion brand, but a little bit on a higher price point than the others, not the fast fashion. So we need more of those solutions to be dominant and visible. And when we do have more of those, they'll become more affordable too. As soon as they scale, they'll become more affordable. So I think that the key here is to provide consumers with choices. Right now, consumers are aware of the plastic problem. They do want to do something about it, but whenever they go out to the shops or whenever they open their phone to do online shopping, the sustainable choice is not apparent. It's going to take them 5 extra steps to say, I want to buy this, but I want to request a non-plastic packaging. That's going to take them an effort, or to go to the near supermarket and choose a fizzy drink that doesn't have a straw included on the product. It's going to take them a bit of an effort. So what we need to do is make sure it's easier for consumers to make that choice. And the best way to do this is by either legislating the companies or pressurizing the companies to take that initiative and do it themselves without legislation.
Well, at this point, if you even go online, there's still not a whole list or a list of sustainable choices at the moment. It's still dominated by the plastic choices. So manufacturers, multinational companies have to, and maybe even micro, small, and medium enterprises have to, get into these sustainable product choices.
Exactly. Yeah, they need to step up the game. They need to turn around their business model, design for circularity, not make it an afterthought, and make it their dominant supply chain model.
Very interesting discussion that we had here, and learning from the experiences of the Wala Usik economy and the plastic bag diet movement. That we can really appreciate the crucial role of what you have both done, Dave and Tiza, and your role in the communities and governments in catalyzing consumer action. We will get back to you in a little while. So we now get into our next discussion point. Who exactly are the consumers, and how can we best reach out to them? So our next panelist will tell us more about the youth and online awareness engagement, because as we all know, information is only one click, one tap, or sometimes just a swipe away. So please join me in welcoming Jasmine Irisha of UNICEF Malaysia and Kay Vasi of the Mesh Minds Foundation. And Jasmine is a climate and environment consultant at UNICEF Malaysia, and she's also a youth mobilization expert. So Jasmine, let's start off with you. Enlighten us. What is sustainable ethical consumerism from a young person's point of view?
Thank you, Rico. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'll be speaking on behalf of also a young person's perspective, and also to give you a couple of insights on what is it like to tackle the climate change narrative from a children's rights perspective. First of all, you asked about what is ethical consumption or eco-consumerism. What is it like for young people? We did a survey recently, a year ago in 2020, a collaboration between UNICEF and UNDP Malaysia. It's called the National Youth Climate Change Survey, and the output is being produced in a key finding report, which is called Change for Climate. And in that particular survey, we found out that 92% of young Malaysians acknowledges that the climate change crisis is a real threat. And that is a big number, that is vast. And we poke further into like what constitutes, like what are the percentage are like within those 92%. And about 9 out of 10 of young Malaysians have experienced drastic environmental degradation impacts or climate change impacts in the past 3 years. And about a good 90% of them also are strongly taking individual actions to combat the climate crisis. But again, when we really look into it in a more detailed perspective, there is quite a spectrum of differences between young people who are already taking action. At one end, we have the young people who are really aware, who are really motivated, and really utilizing their own platforms on awareness raising and also education when it comes to tackling the climate crisis. But on the other end, we also found out that some young people think that climate change is such a big issue. Like, we are just one individual. What can we do about it? So recognizing that, we have put together an array of programs and also outreach in terms of providing a platform for young people to take really active and direct climate action, because at the end of the day, young people are the most impacted by climate change. They are born into the climate crisis and they face the greatest brunt of the burden as they are at the forefront of the threat, being recognized as the victims of the crisis.
Mm-hmm. And you know what, Jasmine, I cannot stress enough the value of giving voice to the youth and equipping them with necessary information to make ethical and informed choices. Of course, COP26, the climate change conference, just finished in Glasgow, Scotland. And of course, a lot of major issues, right? And you mentioned that we're just one individual and how we can really contribute to the reduction of climate change and of course reducing the footprint of greenhouse gas emissions, and what the youth can play in this particular role.
Yeah, evidently. And also just to point out another report that we just launched a couple of weeks ago called Impact of Climate Change on Children in Malaysia. This is done collaboratively with local research institutions and also universities, namely UKM, University Kebangsaan Malaysia, UMS, University Malaysia Sabah, together with UNICEF Malaysia. And this report is very significant because it is one of the pioneering reports in highlighting the interlinkages between climate change impacts and also how is it impacting our children. And there are a number of key highlights from this report, which really shows how children are greatly affected by the climate crisis and also environmental degradation, the trickling impact, including plastic pollution. So I'll share with you some of the key findings of the report because I do think that it is really important. We found out that climate change and environmental degradation are increasingly and intensifying in Malaysia, and children's rights in Malaysia are only protected to a varying degree depending on societal and geographical conditions. And this accelerated climate change impacts and environmental degradation impacts present a serious risk for children in terms of health and education. Children being below 5 years old are most vulnerable, and to add on to that, climate change and environmental degradation impact affects the children's ability to learn. So their access to education, extreme weather events that could potentially harm their physical space, destroying schools, and environmental degradation such as air or water pollution affects closure of schools. To give you one example, in 2019, there was a case where there's a tanker lorry from an illegal tire recycling factory dumped some 2 tons of chemical waste into the Kim Kim River in the state of Johor. This is a case study that is being integrated within the climate report, by the way. And students from the nearby schools they experience difficulty breathing. They experience health crises such as coughing, nausea, eye and throat irritation, vomiting, inhaling all these chemical substances. And because of that, more than 4,000 people, most of them being children, have to be treated for the exposure to these hazardous chemicals. And this also results in a number of schools, more than 100 schools being closed down, thus also impacting the children access to education. They are unable to go to school because of this.
And when you're talking about the youth, Jasmine, the only way to get into their heads and to promote these plastic-free consumption patterns and to influence them is social media. And now we have Kay Vasi with us, who will take us to the world of augmented reality to showcase how today's technology is helping shape online communities of responsible and sensible consumers. So Kay, share with us, what are the online campaigns powered now by augmented reality technology? Kay, you're on mute.
Hi, Rico. Sorry. Nice to be with you.
Impacted by social media. And what are these campaigns?
Yeah, so we launched 100 Days to Beat Plastic Pollution on the 1st of September. And we really wanted to focus on people's habits. So we said to everyone, look, can you pick one simple everyday habit to avoid a single use that maybe you carry your bottle everywhere, maybe you've got your bag, all sorts of different things that you can just really take action on. But instead of just going for that one, habit and then kind of keeping it to yourself, tell all of your friends and take to social media to do so. So we created 4 augmented reality experiences for Instagram. They are Say No to Single Use, Clean Our Oceans, and Meet the Reusables, and Drowning in Plastic. So for example, on Say No to Single Use, you stare into your camera and then you are presented by polluting plastics. You have to shake your head. No, I don't want that item. And then when you see the reusable, yes, I want that item. So you get lots of high scores, and then you can actually tag your friends and challenge them. And that's how we achieve the ultimate ripple effect on social media. So that's where everyone is. Instagram is like the hands down the most popular augmented reality platform at the moment. So let's go where the youth are. Let's go and educate them there, engage them, and hopefully encourage them to transform their behavior and then share that message with their network.
Indeed, using social media right now in the fight against plastic pollution is paramount. But have you really been successful? Have the youth with these online campaigns been sharing it with their friends?
Yes, they have. So today, I'm really pleased to share with you that we've got over 20 million people actually see the campaign, and over 500,000 people already have played the games. We've got 24 days left, everyone. So can we get to 1 million people sharing and playing and pledging online? You just need to go to the UNEP Instagram and you can find everything there. You can then play the games, but then also customize it. Add your own digital stickers, add your own message. Together, we can beat plastic pollution. So,
is Instagram or IG only the social platform of choice? I know a lot of social media users are also, especially the youth, millennials are in TikTok. What about Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook? Are you also spreading the word in these other social media platforms to get
Absolutely.
the message across?
Yes, so you can go to Instagram to use the tool, but then straight away you can use that photo or video that you have snapped and share that wherever you like. You could then go to Twitter, you could take it to TikTok. So really it's just about go where the tools are and then go and share it where you hang out. It just so happens that we chose Instagram because at the moment it's quite hard for us. We're based in Singapore to actually develop for TikTok. And then Snapchat doesn't have very much of a penetration in this region yet. So for Southeast Asia, Instagram is the way forward right now. But as these other platforms come up as well, we're not, we're not kind of wedded to one platform. The most important is go where the tools are and then share your message with your network.
Absolutely. What about on your end, Jasmine? Are the youth, particularly where you are, following these online campaigns on social media? Does it it really matter to them?
Oh yeah, for sure. Kay mentioned about Instagram. I am on Twitter, and that's where I get most of my news, honestly. And you mentioned earlier about COP26, about youth involvement. Like every single day for the past 2 weeks, I got the hashtag COP26 locked on my Twitter account just to follow what are the key findings, what are the deliverables, and what are the progress of the COP every single day. And I think the diversity of Twitter and also the way you can curate your own timeline is that you can follow who you want, and you can form it from there, right? And whether you want to hear voices from the civil society, whether you want to hear voices from the government, whether you want to hear voices from the young people themselves, they are very active. They post every single day, and that is one of my go-to platforms. In fact, for one of our programs at UNICEF and UNDP Malaysia, it's called Youth Environment Living Labs. We are really leveraging on social media and also forms of media communications to relay our programs and messaging. And YEL, Youth Environment Living Labs, is this initiative where we are really strengthening and focusing on localized narrative. Because then again, when we talk about things like climate change or environmental degradation or pollution even, we often hear this westernized narrative. Like when you think about climate change, you think about polar bears, but what does climate change look like in the Southeast Asian region? What does climate change look like in Malaysia? And this is where we want to bring forward, amplify particularly those voices from the most marginalized and also vulnerable communities, including our indigenous people, the B40, children with disabilities, migrants and refugees.
Yeah, because for dinosaurs like myself, no, Jasmine and Kay, when we want to fight for an issue, when we want to fight for the environment, no to single-use plastics, we go out in the streets, carry placards, and protest. Now the protest is on social media.
Yeah,
That's
it's the
absolutely
most,
right.
yeah.
Okay, let's start off with you.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Look, back in the day, we just had unidirectional, TV to tell us what to do. And now, we are able to carry around this mini television in our pockets via our smartphones. Smartphone penetration is very high. Even by 2025, for example, in Thailand, there'll be 75% of the population has access to a smartphone. So as more people get these smartphones, we need to make sure that they're also used in the right way. So rather than unidirectional, it's multi-directional. People are able to use that wonderful little piece, the device in their pocket to then share important messages with the world. That's why we also said in the campaign, we have to spotlight the amazing sustainability advocates from this region who completely agree with Jasmine, who sometimes often get passed over in other campaigns. So it's really important to focus really squarely on what we can do to spotlight these amazing community leaders in Southeast Asia, and then get them to also not only share their stories, but then play along and pledge as well, and really, really kind of supercharge that ultimate ripple effect.
Jasmine, you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to add on to KK, really amazing points. And also to the point of, protests and strikes, like in the past couple of years, you can see an ignition of mobilization of young people, very vibrant, very diverse from all over the world, sparked by Greta Thunberg, Fridays for the Futures movement. And it is really quite intensifying here in our region as well. We have really great advocates from Philippines, such as Mitzi Jonel. We have really great advocates from Singapore, like Kate Yeo, and also in Malaysia, such as Ili Nadia, Amalina Arifin. So these are all the youth climate champions that we have to amplify their voices. And also in terms of inclusion and diversity, I think I was taking notes. Dave mentioned about equity, and also just to add on to that, right? Inclusiveness in terms of climate voices, are youth who are advocating for environmental and climate justice. These are the young people that we really, really, really need to highlight. And these are the young people who carries the most important voices so that we can move forward to a more sustainable, equitable, and also plastic-free future.
It's not just about curating 10-second, 15-second campaigns, Kay. You also mentioned about gamifying plastic pollution messaging. How can this increase engagement with the problem?
Yeah, so for example, in standard games, we're using our thumbs and fingers a lot, right? I mean, in every communication we often have with these smartphones, it's all about your kind of how fast your little thumbs can move on your WhatsApp message, for example. But we're actually being able, through using augmented reality technology, to create gesture-based games. So you don't need to use your fingers and thumbs. You're actually actively shaking your head. No, I do not want this future. Yes, I do want that reusable. And yes, I will pledge and share this with my friends. So it's quite a different approach to this kind of, you know, standard gamification. And we do feel it's kind of therefore also more inclusive, that it's kind of augmented reality allows us to have these kind of gestures like shaking your head or nodding and that kind of thing, rather than just kind of keeping it within the realm of your hands. And I think that we're onto something, because we've got a lady who we're speaking to about, she's written a book called How to Save the World through making games. And she says, I think that, you know, if you actually actively have to shake your head, something in your brain is going to register way more than just simply using your fingers and thumbs. And if we have that increased engagement, we then have increased empathy. And it's that empathy that we need to have increased numbers of people in their droves answering the call to action to beat plastic pollution. And then through that sharing mechanism, loads more people can then also see it. And these messages come authentically from your friends and your family, not from someone else. It's that kind of authentic level of communication that we're going after.
Can this kind of campaign be sustained? Is there a momentum, Kay?
Absolutely. So we've kind of focused at the moment on Southeast Asia. 6 of the top 20 polluters in the world are from this region. But the games are global in that sense, and they are forever green, and they will be forever free to play. So if anyone wants to keep using them way past the campaign, please feel free. You just need to go to UNET's Instagram. It's all there for you. You could even, if you're an educator, think about how you could use this in the classroom as part of your engagement on plastic pollution. It's just a simple game. It takes a few seconds to open up and challenge each other in the classroom. And then from there, you can then perhaps think, well, how could I create my own game? How can I do this better? And all you need is a bit of amazing artwork, a little bit of augmented reality technology knowledge, which you can teach yourself completely for free on all of the resources on like YouTube, etc., on Facebook. And then just a really good for good message. So that's where we're coming from. Everyone should be able to get on board with this art and technology for good.
That's wonderful. Maybe I would like to learn about this right after this session and get into it. Okay. Thank you so much, Kay and Jasmine. So much lessons that we have learned from both of you today. And we'll now get into the open forum and check some of the questions in our chat box. We have a question here for John. John, if you're still there, here's a question for you. During the period of COVID-19, especially in the hospitality industry, did Planet 21 have a dedicated budget line in order to retain its implementation and meaningful activities to the communities?
So actually, during this time, we've actually just appointed a new lead from Paris, Brune, who was actually a Minister of State for the French government who eliminated single-use plastic throughout France. So Acor is still making this a priority. Within our reporting, we've got mandatory actions that we have to follow. So hotels and at corporate level, there's still, we still have to do it. So even during the pandemic, we still had actions to follow. So yes, there's budget there and we still continue doing it.
All right. Thank you so much, John, for that answer from one of our Vietnamese delegates who is joining us today. And this question for Aidan, how does the raw material strength of recycled beach waste compare to virgin plastics, and how much virgin plastics is needed to upcycle beach plastic waste? This is a question from Ngin Zun Chung.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for the question. Well, basically, rPET or recycled polyester is just as good as the virgin polyester, because to create the garments from the recycled polyester, you just need to yarn it or combine it with the yarn that is correct that we already have, such as we combine it with cotton, and also we do have the fabric recycled from recycled polyester that is 100% from rPET. So the thing is, the rPET is actually as good as virgin polyester. It's just that the conversion of rPET to fabric takes less energy from the virgin polyester. So how many rPET plastic bottles, if I'm not mistaken about the questions, we need some kind of 7 to 8 plastic bottles to 1 meter of fabric. So in order for you to create 1 meter of fabrics, you must need of 7 to 8 plastic bottles, and that plastic bottles can be turned into 1 meter of fabric. So if, let's say, one shirt must be required of 2 meters of fabric, it must be kind of like 15 to 16 plastic bottles that is required for you to create a 1 full shirt.
Thank you so much for that answer. And here's another question for both Idan and John. John, let me throw this question to you first to answer, and then Idan will follow up. What sort of sustainability initiative can the hotel industry and the fashion sector come up with together?
Yeah, as I saw that question come through, it's I was going to message Idan and actually talk about this. I think as hotels, we've already got sustainable bedding, which is sourced correctly. But I think with this technology where you can actually make clothes out of plastic, I would love to be able to start doing something around hotel uniforms, because if you think most hotels, 100 to 150 staff members, kind of 6 pieces of uniform per staff member across all of the hotels. That's a lot of plastic waste that we can reuse and make, and then actually tell a story about it. So the uniforms are sustainable. They are from recycled products. Then we can use Kay on the social media to help us promote this across the industry. So I think across all of us, it'd be very cool to be able to do this. And it's been in the back of my mind for a while on how to do this. But I think from these conversations today, we'll keep in touch with the panelists and see how we can keep pushing some initiative like that.
All right, Idan?
Yeah, very interesting, because talking about fashion sustainability, because we are in the clothing and textile industry. Clothing and textile industry is basically very wide in terms of whatever things that you're wearing or whatever things that you have, whatever things that you have in your table, clothes, tablecloth, those kind of things. So we can actually be working together and create something out of sustainable fabric materials, and not just the hotel industry. I think the F&B industry, the sports industry, the jersey that the athletes are wearing, and also from the F&B industry, the chef, the apron, everything. So we are basically trying to, insert our own sustainability movements into every aspect. But in terms of the hotel industry, I would love to work together with John in terms of that.
So, okay, you just listened to what Idan and what John said. What kind of online campaign or social media campaign can we come up with if there's a collaboration indeed between the fashion and the hotel and hospitality industries?
So actually, we've already created before a fast fashion game. So you had to blink to keep your little T-shirt away from the landfill. And the longer that you could do that, the higher score that you had. So for example, any hotel or any brand like Acor can also just then harness that type of little game and say, great, whoever then tags Acor with their high score gets to come and win a one-night stay at the hotel. So there's all these, that you can use these little kind of tools and games to then really engage your young consumers with your own brand, and also kind of use it to stand behind as well and say, we really want to beat plastic pollution. Let's play a game. Let's make this fun. Let's stay away from climate apathy by constantly bombarding people with these kind of really anxiety-raising messages, and try to inject a little bit of fun. That way, maybe we have a slightly more, as I was saying before, a little bit more empathy and engagement, and then that's when you're going to get actual answers to the call to action.
Dave, Tisa, I just want to get back to you. With your initiatives, do you think this is sustainable? There is momentum for your campaigns going forward, And what do you think could be the hindrances to change? Dave, let's start off with you.
Our dependence on plastic, I think, Rico, has been cultivated by decades of advertising. I think Kay was really pointing to that, the bombardment of messages on what plastic means to our life and how convenience is being viewed by everyone. That is definitely the momentum that we need to keep, is that we need to also spend decades and maybe even the same amount of billions of dollars to ensure that this messaging, keeps on reaching this generation and enable them for action. Now, the hindrance to behavior change, I think, is really also the inequity that they can find in access to products and pricing, and more sustainable options, unfortunately, are viewed by people in the community that I work with as more expensive. So we need to work with the corporations that produces and understand what are the pain points, what are the issues with the costs that will be involved in adoption of circular practices by the community.
And Tisa, has social media messaging help in any way get your message across for sustainable consumption?
Absolutely. I would say a combination of social media and concrete action on the ground, because a lot of our social media followers are also looking for, after they're becoming aware and becoming active on social media, voicing their opinions on social media, they're also often looking for, okay, what do I do in real life that can make a difference? And the answer, the inspiration coming from the media that they read, translated into actual behavioral changes in their daily lives, as well as influencing, real people around them, their teachers or their parents or their peers, is really what they're looking for. They're looking to make a difference. And I think that's the momentum that we're continually trying to build on, that it's not just, it doesn't stop at awareness and being vocal, but it also empowers people to create concrete changes and embody this lifestyle, not just in their personal lives, but in their professions as well. So that's another key thing that we always like to say to the younger generation or the newer batch of volunteers that follow our activities, is that this is a lifelong journey. This is a marathon. Change doesn't happen in a month or a year even. Change happens within a span of a decade or so. So make sure that you really build your life around this, because this is a mission that is worthwhile, to be fighting for, and to be, like a passion and a profession for you. So I think that's, that's kind of what has resonated with a lot of younger people today.
And for you, Jasmine?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you mentioned coupling social media and also concrete action, Giza, I totally resonate with you. And also just recognizing what fuels the passion or their emotions within the young people nowadays, right? Young people, when you talk about sustainability, when you talk about climate change, when you talk about environmental impacts, they are loud. They are loud on the streets. They are loud on social media. They will just voice out their own opinions. They're angry, they're frustrated, and all those emotions are valid because they feel like things are not moving fast enough. And it is with the young people where, they are really holding the leaders accountable for their promises, for their pledges, and for their commitments, right? And these roles are twofold as well, like putting the leaders accountable and also leaders really committing towards what they say at international platforms or on a local scale at a national governance and policy level. And also recognizing that the strength and power of youth and mobilizing on the ground and their representation at international conferences like the recently concluded climate conference at COP26. We have really strong voices, and these are really important voices to really highlight and also emphasize when they come back from these international conferences and to see the changes that they make on the ground. And also, another point that Dave pointed out about inequity, right? Just to leverage a bit more on that, I think this is where also at one of our programs under Yale, we invite youth climate champions to share their best practices, those who are already at the forefront of sustainability, those who are already at the forefront of advocacy, to sort of share their stories, their lived experiences, saying that, hey, you know, taking the sustainable path is not that hard, but also recognizing that each one of us experiences all these impacts or burdens separately or differently than one another. And it is true. We've been talking to a lot of young people. They do share and they do express it. You know, most of the times they cannot afford to live sustainably because sustainability choices are a privilege. The choice in itself is a privilege. So sometimes it is easier to go for a faster option, for the more fast fashion or fast food option, just because they live within the vicinity. They have the convenience of reaching it. They do not have the option of choices, and that in itself is a struggle for them. So really reflecting on that and really to see where we can provide a more equitable platform and also a more inclusive environment where all young people can come together to have the more sustainable choice and to also really fight collectively in tackling the crisis at hand.
Thank you very much for all those very interesting answers in this session. And we have about a few minutes left before we end our session. And I would like to get a final word from all our panelists today. And we'll start off with Idan. And I'll be asking you each, I'll just be asking one question. If you could give me an answer to this question that I will give to all of you. And this is the question: what is the most urgent action right now to drive that transition towards building a more eco-friendly consumer society? Your final word, Idan.
Okay, for me, to drive the passion of sustainability for the society and also to everybody, is that we need a better understanding in terms of saving the environment and also link up with our passion in whatever things that we're doing. Especially for us in the fashion industry, our path in our link to the fashion to the sustainability movement is quite far, but then we try to find that one link or one line that can connect us with the sustainability, because we believe that it is our responsibility and we wanted to do it to save the environment, and also we wanted to do it because of our love and passion towards the environment and also towards the nature. So for me, myself, I would like to urge everybody, especially in the fashion industry, people to think about the fashion sustainability and also to start to think about the effects of the environment from the, you know, whatever things that we're doing right now, because everything that we're doing is affecting the environment in total.
Thank you so much, Idan, for joining us today. John, for you, what is the one most urgent action that needs to be done?
I think it's everyone's got to take an action. You can't just rely on companies or industries doing it. Everyone has to take that extra step. And if the action of 100 days to reduce one item, everyone should be taking part of this. It's your water bottles, it's your plastic bags, it's saying no to the straw. When you go and get your street food, you take your container with you and get the street food filled up so you can take that and wash it at home. It's not just, you can't rely on others. Everyone has to take an action today you can't wait for everyone else. Take action yourself, do it yourself. And it's a groundswell movement.
Thank you so much, John. Dave?
Empathize, I think, is the first urgent action that I would like to recommend to everyone. Empathize with the sectors that are hit the most with the climate crisis and plastic pollution. Empathize with the sectors that produce things for us, food and materials, especially the local ones. If we're able to empathize enough, I think we can innovate more as a culture, as a community, as a species. And if we can send spaceships to Mars or the orbit, we should be able to design a more circular economy and more equitable circular economy for everyone.
Thank you so much, Dave. Tiza, your most urgent action.
No material as strong and as durable as plastic should ever be designed as disposable within a few minutes after using them. It is a travesty, and that practice needs to be phased out. We can still have plastic producers produce their plastic, but it needs to be designed as a reusable or durable plastic with a circular way of coming back to the producers to be recycled and used again. That's the most urgent thing for me.
Tiza, thank you so much. Jasmine?
Yeah, thanks, Rico. We need more strengthened cross-sectoral collaboration. We need an enabling environment and enhanced circularity. You know what? Involve young people in the decision-making process, in the climate policy-making process. They have a voice and they want to be heard. And they are the most impacted generations to come. It is important to acknowledge that every child has the right to a safe, clean, healthy, and sustainable future.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. And Kay?
Yes, you can start your 100 days to beat plastic pollution anytime. So how about today? Pick one simple habit to move away from that single-use plastic, keep it for 100 days, and keep that habit for life. You can do it. And when you do that, please take to social media, share that message with your friend, and let's create the ultimate ripple effect to beat plastic pollution.
Thank you so much, Kay, and to our other panelists, Jasmine, Tiza, Dave, John, and Idan. And we have indeed heard some truly very inspiring stories from our panelists today and solutions for eliminating plastic waste in the region, in our communities, and in our lives. Ladies and gentlemen, this has truly been an informative and educational session for all of us. And here are some of the key takeaways. Consumer awareness and action is indeed one of the most effective solutions to reduce plastic waste, but it is not a stand-alone tool nor strategy. We need to have concerted efforts across all sectors. Industries must innovate and collaborate. Governments and communities need to engage. And finally, we have to harness the power of the youth and digital technologies to make way for a new wave of eco-friendly consumer society. I hope you had as much food for thought than I had today, speaking with our truly inspiring panelists and hearing feedback from the audience. Remember to come back online for the next session, which will happen in about half an hour's time. While we have tackled responsible consumption in this session, the next one will discuss innovations in the sustainable packaging value chain. And on a personal note, I hope to see you again tomorrow, same time, same place, for session 4, which will focus on plugging plastic leakage, enabling extended producer responsibility through producer responsibility organizations. Thank you so much for investing your time with us. I'm Rico Hizon, your host and moderator for this session. Stay safe, stay healthy, take care, everyone. And we leave you now with this video challenge to act now. Together, we can #beat plastic pollution. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Nice meeting you all.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.
Take care.
We are facing a plastic pandemic. The estimated 11 million metric tons of plastic currently entering the ocean annually will triple by 2040 unless we act now. To help ignite behaviour change, we started building a unified online community of Southeast Asian sustainability advocates. Using the latest social media and augmented reality tools, we launched 100 Days to Beat Plastic Pollution, we made hundreds of posts and stories to encourage people to use the 4 AR experiences in a digital toolkit. Research shows that it takes 66 days on average for a new habit to become automatic. So we challenged everyone to pick a new habit to avoid single-use plastic, sustain it for 100 days, and keep it for life. We designed 4 interactive AR experiences on Instagram: Drowning in Plastic, Say No to Single Use, Clean Our Oceans, and Meet the Reusables. These AR experiences aim to engage and educate youth across Southeast Asia to transform their single-use plastic habits for positive, long-lasting behaviour change. The digital toolkit aims to inspire action by showcasing sustainability advocates. We invite youth to interact using social media, and we ask them to share their personalised messages to create the ultimate ripple effect. We targeted 7 countries, sparked conversations with community leaders, and heard strong voices of acceleration in support of turning the tide on the plastic pandemic.
To beat plastic pollution, I start by looking at my own plastic consumption and using reusable alternatives.
And being mindful regarding the production as well as the usage.
Creating better, cleaner, cheaper products and materials.
I speak with government leaders as well as business owners to ban single-use plastic.
A green, sustainable economy is the only real wealth we can leave for the future generations.
It's your turn now.
Together, we can beat plastic pollution.
To date, we have reached more than 15 million people, and over 500,000 have played with the AR experiences. Join the movement. If we act now, together, we can beat plastic pollution.